Okay, guys, I just got back from a nice little relaxing vacation down in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. I was managed to stay on the diet, but I'll tell you, it's good to be back in the U.S. where you have a lot better, control over your diet. Unfortunately, you're at a place where you can't really control how they cook the meat or what the sauces are and so on and so forth. So you kind of have to make a little bit of do what you can. Fortunately, I'm not dealing with any major autoimmune or any severe diseases that small little uh, deviations are going to be the end of the world for me. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit. I will get to that damn air fryer review for some of you guys who want to do that. I just got to set that up. So, but for you guys that are always asking me about starting the diet, this is what I'm gonna kind of put together a little 10-minute, 15-minute deal on what I think is important. From what I've seen, the thousands of people now that I've seen that have done this, the ones that have been successful, the ones that have failed. And there are many ways to skin a cat, and I don't advocate that everyone in the world needs to be on a carnivore diet, needs to be on a strict carnivore diet. But I do think that if you want to explore that option for whatever reason, whether it's for just curiosity, if it's for a legitimate medical issue, which certainly I think this can be a way to solve those problems, or even if you're concerned about athletic performance, and a lot of people have enhanced that by doing so. So I think the first step is to sort of take whatever goals you have, whether they be body composition goals or body weight goals or lab value goals or anything like that. I think you just put that on the back burner, okay? And not that those aren't important and not that those things shouldn't be addressed, but initially, this is a diet that is very much a radical departure for most people. Some people will, be coming from a ketogenic background and the diet is not that different. You may be kicking out some leafy green vegetables, some artificial sweeteners, maybe you're adding, MCT oil or some things like that to the diet that you're getting rid of. But I mean, for most people, it's a pretty radical departure. And so it requires a couple things. There's an adaptation that occurs physiologically. And that process for most people, a month, 60 days, and so I would say really for the first 60 to 90 days, just focus on adapting to the diet, adapting to the physiology. Additionally, there is not only physiology that's changing, and when I mean physiology, I mean your capacity to digest meat again, your capacity to, for some of you, you're just not very efficient at it. Certain enzymes and will have to be ramped up. Certain metabolic machinery have to be, you know, increased. Some will be decreased. There'll be, changes in, acid production. There'll be changes in reabsorption of fluid in the colon, all kinds of things that happen metabolically and enzymatically and hormonally that will occur, and it takes some time for that transition to happen. But also psychologically, it's very, it's just a different. It's really a different culture. Well, it's not that humans aren't used to doing this. I mean, if I were to drop you into Mongolia 100 years ago, in rural Mongolia, or even some of the northern places today, northern Russia, where some of these tribes live. I mean, that would be normal, right? That'd be a normal diet. But for most of us, that's a very much radical departure from what we know culturally. It's not that we don't do that as human beings, but we are so used to, at least for the last at least 10,000 years, probably, some places less, some places more, we are used to including, vegetables, fruits, grains, starches, so on and so forth in the diet. And to take that out is just culturally difficult to do and psychologically difficult to do. So, again, the other thing we have to get used to doing is coming away from counting your calories, counting your macros, worrying about ketosis, worrying about blood glucose, all those things. Not that those things aren't important at some point, and some of them are more important than others. Some of them, in my view, are not particularly relevant. But, if you end up restricting and, causing yourself, to undereat, which is the biggest problem I see because we're worried about, a body composition goal, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to struggle. You're going to end up, you know, being hungry. And when you're hungry, you eat crap. This is the bottom line. If you don't want to be slave to your food, if you don't want to be slave to that tray of cookies that your coworkers brings, or those Krispy Kreme donuts that somebody sticks in there, or that Quest bar, or whatever's laying around the house, the dark chocolate you got in the cupboard. If you don't want to be a victim to that, you got to eat enough. And by enough, I mean enough so they're not bothering you with those cravings. And so you might have to eat 2.5, 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 5 pounds, 6 pounds of meat a day for a while. Some of you, just to get through it. Some of you guys will have a hard time. You'll struggle with eating a pound. I mean, that'll seem like a monumental task for some of you guys that just aren't used to eating very much, particularly meat. But I will tell you that you really need to make the effort to eat enough so that you have the ability, the physiological ability to resist those cravings. When you're not hungry, it's pretty easy to resist those cravings. There's still that psychological, I really want this, I don't really need it, I'm not that hungry, but I really want it. That takes some time. But if you're physiologically full, then it's a lot easier to meet that challenge. The other thing is, and this is something that I tell people in the beginning, many people will look at the diet and see that I eat, almost all ribeyes or almost all some kind of red meat and think, oh my gosh, how is it possible that you only eat basically one thing? I didn't start out that way, and and even today I'll have a little bit of variety. Sometimes I was on vacation, it wasn't an option for me, so I ate fish, I ate pork, I ate bacon and eggs, I ate red meat when it was available. But I mean, day to day, when I have an option, and I have a choice, I mean, I'll typically pick, usually some kind of fatty steak, just because for me personally, that's what gets the job done. That's what I crave. That's what makes me feel the best nutritionally, and I really enjoy the meals. But in the beginning, use variety. For God's sake, don't think you got to eat one thing all the time. Bacon and eggs, steak, shrimp, different cuts of meat, lamb, goat, chicken, pork, sausages, spices, sauces, those things to make it palatable. A little bit of dairy, cheese here and there to make it palatable in the beginning are going to help you out. If you go straight from eating 700 different types of food to nothing but plain old ground beef, man, that's going to be tough. So you've got to early on use a little bit of variety, have fun with it, enjoy your meals, make it a big deal. If you're a foodie, make it a big deal. Cook the best damn steak you have, put a little bit of seasoning on there. Eventually you'll figure out, that maybe some of those seasonings bother you a little bit. You know which ones you can and can't use. In the beginning, again, you're coming from probably something that's worse, and a few little, sprinkles of rosemary for most people is not the end of the world. And even long term, it's probably not the end of the world. Again, this isn't you're not joining a cult, you're not joining a religion. There's no dogmatic ethical, commandments that you have to follow. But I mean, ultimately the goal is to find out what's working for you. If you find out that an animal-based diet, whether it's fully 100% carnivorous or mostly carnivorous works for you, good for you. If it doesn't work for you, you tried and it didn't work. But what I would say is, again, 60 to 90 days, go eat plenty. Try to be, at some point in there, as you try to wean down those things, those extra things that are in there, to see, this can be, particularly for you guys that have a medical issue, you're solving a problem. And so you need to remove as many variables as possible. And so for some of you, it might be coffee. For some of you, it might be dairy. For some of you, it might be some of those spices, For some of you, it might be a particular type of meat. It might be that you don't tolerate beef very well. You don't tolerate pork very well. You don't tolerate eggs very well. And so you have to eliminate those things. And you're not, you can survive indefinitely on red meat. I can tell you that. If that's what you're down to, you're going to be just fine. You're not going to die. You're not going to starve. You're not going to get scurvy. The only way that would be an exception is if you were dramatically undereating and you're eating preserved or dried meat. If you're eating meat from the supermarket, it's fine. Let's talk about another thing. You do not have to get the finest of the finest, organic, grass-finished, antibiotic, hormone-free meat. You just don't have to. It may make a small difference for some people, and I think that's fine. And there may be people that have either ethical or environmental concerns, and those things are fine too. If you want to honor that and you can afford to do that, do that. Most people just don't have the cash to do that. I mean, it's you know, to tell people they've got to eat nothing but organic, grass-finished meat for many people is just not an economic option. You know, I think we're very blessed in the United States to have very, very affordable meat, and then we should thank the people that make that possible for us, because it is truly a superfood. You know, there are specific things that occur, you know, that during the transition period. I'll probably do that in another video. I'm just going to run out of time on this one. But again, the general thing is you don't have to be 100% strict. You don't have to, in the beginning, you know, or, you know, I think there's a period of time where you should be so you can figure things out. But, you know, you don't have to be, you know, red meat or nothing. You know, it can be, like people ask me about fish and chicken and pork and goat and octopus and, you know, water buffalo and penguin. It's all fine, right? Whatever you can afford, whatever you enjoy. If you're eating wild game meat, you know, you're gonna have to eat enough fat. That's one caveat there. Human beings evolved eating big fatty animals like mammoths and elephants. That's what we preferentially sought out for much of our existence. Those animals died. We ended up having to chase down leaner animals. We ended up eating as much of the fat as we could. That's where we started ripping into their bones to get the marrow and eating their brains and the organs and all the fatty pieces that we could get, most likely. When we couldn't catch enough of those, we supplemented our energy needs with carbohydrates. And that's basically how likely many of us survive for a long period of time. All right, so again, just to review, eat enough. Don't worry about being perfect. You know, you can transition. You know, some people find that fiber in the beginning is helpful. Maybe you have to wean off those last little bits of fiber. You know, for a while, slowly drop it down so your GI system can get used to that. Some people will have diarrhea. I can do a different video on GI stuff here in a little bit, but in general, that's kind of the gist of it. All right, guys, let me know what other topics you guys are interested in. I'll do that. We're going to see if we can do some live events in the near future for you guys that, you know, have the capacity to do that. Maybe something in the Southern California area. What else? In my description below, if you guys want to do one-on-one consultation, I do those. Do a bunch of those every week. I get some people that, you know, I think have been very, very productive for helping people, not only just with diet, but with health in general, with training. You know, remember, I mean, I've been a physician, I've been a world champion athlete, been around the block. You know, I've got a lot of years of accumulated wisdom on, you know, how to get the most out of life, I think, you know, from a health-wise, you know, performance-wise, satisfaction-wise, and just being alive. You know, I think there's some important things that go outside of diet that we can talk about. HBO podcast, man, we got some good people coming on this month. We got Jason Fung coming on. We got Dr. Mike Eads coming on. We got Joel Kahn, a cardiologist from the vegan side. We're going to talk to him. So we got a bunch of good stuff coming on for that group. Meat Heals website, check it out. If you got a story you want to tell, please contribute to the knowledge in the database. We'll probably do some studies coming up here in the near future. What else I got going on? Live events, Meat Heals. Got some Carnivore merchandise for you guys. Hat like that, Carnivore Nation. That stuff. Anyway, I'll put some links in the, what do you call it, in the description area. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoy. Share it, subscribe, all that stuff you're supposed to do. All right, guys. Anyway, hope you guys have a good day. I'll talk to you probably in a few days with some other stuff. I'll get that air fryer review done in the very near future, I promise. Take care.